Hello, welcome to another Search with Sean. And if you didn't know, this is the episodes that we cover everything about SEO and AI, all the latest news, case studies, expert insights, all that kind of thing. So if that interests you, then please continue to watch and obviously subscribe. That really helps the channel. We've grown quite a lot actually in the last few weeks, but obviously it'll be great if you can subscribe or just give a like or comment, whatever you want to do. It all helps. So that's great. So yeah, we'll get cracking on some admin stuff, and then we'll get into the stories. But last week was weird. I think it was last week, might be 2 weeks ago. I can't keep up with. We've got so much going on. But I was on my own, which was strange. It felt really odd. So I'm great that I've got my co-host Adair. So hello Adair. Thanks for joining me again. So yeah, we're getting to the admin stuff. So bring up the slides. So yeah, generally, along with the SEO and AI news, we also cover, we talk to industry experts. And the last few, I'll just remind you, and I'll put some links in the description as usual, but we had Natalia Wichuk on, and we talked mainly around international SEO. She's an expert in that, and we covered some great stuff and well worth a follow and a watch of that. And then last week I spoke to the agency owner, James Owen, who's the owner and co-founder of Click Intelligence. You probably heard of them. They're all bright in SEO and stuff. And we covered everything to do with agency life, how they deal with clients and that kind of thing. So again, we have a real mixture. We've got international SEO, we've got agencies, we've done local stuff. We've got lots coming. I'm fully booked till like January, late January. So got lots of great chats coming up. So it's well worth subscribing so you're the first to hear about those, plus all the new stuff that we do. And yeah, the event. So this is still in the works and it's grown quite big. I've had a lot of great people come forward that have agreed to create some videos for us in this event, and others that have come forward that have shown interest, and they all range in topics across digital marketing, and it's looking really awesome. It's going to be bigger than I first anticipated, so yeah, it's going to be great. And yeah, it's still in the works, so do keep an eye out on LinkedIn for updates. And obviously I'll put some things I'll set up events and stuff and invite everyone if you follow me or we connect. But generally, if you're interested in getting involved, if you work in digital marketing, don't matter what your experience is in or what part of it you work in, I'm interested to hear from you. If you want to present about a certain idea, topic, whatever it is, you haven't got to have slides, you can just talk. It's up to you. I want a whole range of videos, and basically what it'd be is a series of days, probably now, because I've got quite a few people interested, is a series of days of streamed videos, related videos, really interesting, and some commentary in between from myself about those videos. So yeah, that'll probably be streamed on YouTube, LinkedIn, that kind of thing. So it's going to be quite great, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. So if you're interested, obviously, to get involved and do get in touch. I have put the deadline for whatever topic you want to cover for the end of October, and then the video creation to be at the end of November, just so I've got time to organize it all, put it into some streaming format. Then that means I can then go ahead and do it. And then obviously, if you want to watch it, then that'll be, I say, start to the middle of December. I'm not quite sure on dates exactly yet, but yeah, do keep track me on LinkedIn, and you'll be the first to hear about all that. So yeah, we'll talk about actually the news now, and as usual, we recap on the last episode. And yeah, it's on my own, but we did cover some good things. So we had Q&A, and that was a leader, Celise, with Danny Sullivan, and that was some really interesting insights. Obviously, they gave some general answers as usual, but there was some information there that came out. Brand signal study by Tom Kappa from Moz. That was really, really interesting as well. Yelp's case against Google, as we're going to touch upon today. They have a few ongoing battles right now. Google linking back to the Wayback Machine, and Google's updates on the web search spam policies. So yeah, if you want to watch that, obviously I'll put a link and you can go back and watch all that. And we obviously we're on episode 9 now, so if you want to go back and watch them all, then there's still a lot of relevant information. Like I say, we don't cover the news, although that is our main thing. We cover case studies as well, and interesting insights. So it might be worth of interest to go back and watch them. And also, like with all the episodes, you put all the links in the description. So if I don't, cover it all, or I speak too quickly or make mistakes or whatever, you can go back and watch it or read it yourself. And so all the links will be there. And on this episode, so we're going to look at DOJ, possibly breaking up Google. Obviously, we have discussed this in the past, but it has accelerated a little bit, and there's some more information around that now. Bing generative search experience rolling out, mainly across America, and OpenAI confirm AI agents coming next year. So, yeah, some interesting stories there. So we get going on the story 1, and as I say, it's about DOJ possibly breaking up Google as a remedy for the monopoly ruling. And just there's some key points there as well. But generally, just a recap on everything. As usual, I'll read out some points, and then obviously myself and Adair will talk over some of the developments. So the US DOJ's Department of Justice antitrust case against Google aims to address its dominance in search and advertising, considering significant measures like breaking up its key business divisions. Google faces accusations of abusing its power and pre-installing services on Android, creating barriers for competition. Potential breakups could involve separating Google's ad tech business and other services like Android or Chrome. Google defends itself, saying these actions could harm innovation and users. We'll get onto that in a minute. And the final verdict is expected in August 2025. And they go on to say it could reshape the tech industry with long-term appeals likely. So it probably would drag on further past this date. And what was interesting is before we came on, Adair, you wasn't aware of this, I did some additional reading on Politico, and I put all the links in the description, but they go on to say, unlike European regulators targeting the same firms, President Joe Biden's enforcers are swinging for the fences, proposing a radical restructuring of how Google works rather than chipping away at the company with fines. With the new administration poised to take the White House next year, presidential politics could also undercut any broader push against the tech giants. Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump are both under pressure to replace Biden's hard-charging antitrust enforcers. So, and Rebecca Hoare Allensworth, an antitrust expert at Vanderbilt Law School, was quoted saying, neither candidate has been very clear about their antitrust priorities. So we don't really know where they stand on those. On that, and where was and we'll just talk about Google's response before we get into it, because it was quite interesting and probably quite predictable in a way, and I'll say something quite interesting afterwards as well. So Google claims that the remedies that the DOJ seeks will hold back innovation because the industry itself is at an infancy, it's highly competitive, and there's no monopolies needing a remedy to fix. And they say there are enormous risks to the government putting its thumb on the scale of this vital industry, skewing investment, distorting incentives, hobbling emerging business models, all at precisely the moment that we need to encourage investment, new business models, and an American technological leadership. So what I was going to say was that Facebook said a very similar thing when similar charges well, charges generally were being brought up against them, and they said that doing that to them would also do the same thing to the social media industry. So that was interesting. And also was interesting, if you go back to Natalia Witchick's chat that we had, is that she brought up a very good case study around the film industry back in the day, and when they did a groundbreaking sort of case around that, and it really changed the way the film industry worked around that cinemas could buy single films rather than packages. They had to buy packages and stuff, and it changed the way it really shaped the industry. So I guess with all this, and I must say, and I'm still skeptical a bit, but me and you were both very like, Google aren't going to get touched. There's no way they're going to get, this is going to go through. And I still kind of think that, but the noises coming out of it actually sounds like they actually want to do something quite damaging to Google. But then again, I do think if there is a change, well, there will be a change in the president of the United States, but especially if it's Donald Trump, if the change in that will actually affect what's going on in this trial. And I also think it would drag on, like I say, next year, August next year, but it'll probably be further than that. So, and things are changing so rapidly in search. So yeah, I don't know if you've been keeping up to date with this story, but what's your thoughts on all this?
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, there's so much to unpack on this story. I think, as you say, I didn't read the article about presidential involvement, but that is quite worrying and interesting at the same time. I think the idea of politicians getting too involved in search and web in general, I don't want to go too far down a conspiracy theory rabbit hole, but that doesn't sit well with me. That makes me quite uncomfortable, and I imagine it will make quite a lot of users uncomfortable as well. Part of Google's MO, their modus operandi, is about making information available to everyone, and the idea of that being politically influenced is concerning, and what kind of biases could come in there. I think also it's interesting that this started off as, it seemed like it was about their monopoly and their partnerships with different companies, or the companies they own, things like Android, their partnership with Reddit, and just breaking those down a bit so they don't have such a kind of iron grip on everything. But it seems to have really expanded since then. So it seems like it's kind of Department of Justice taking the opportunity to think, right, where else can we get them? And, getting them to make their data more available to everyone, making the AI more available. So I think, I don't know, I think Google's responses maybe they're not as convincing as they would like them to be, but I do think they have a valid point about the fact that it's kind of like, well, hold on, you're going after us for all these different things, when originally it was just this still big area, but it was kind of more focused on that one thing. And yeah, like you say, do we really think that they're not going to drag this out as long as possible? And how much is search going to change in that time as well? I mean, it's changed so much even in the past year. So a ruling by August 2025 next year, and then appeals, I think if they just drag it out, everyone will end up spending loads of money, and the search landscape could be completely different by that point anyway. But it is interesting. And in terms of their monopoly as well, I was thinking about this and the fact that, yes, they do have this dominance, massive dominance, like, is it 92% market share, I think, in search, but they could be thinking more long term. People aren't necessarily using traditional search engines as much. Obviously, with AI and with social media being used more as a search engine, there's been a few stories recently about how Gen Z are not using Google as a verb anymore. So it might be that although they are still a really dominant player, they don't want to lose what they already have because it's already somewhat at risk. And yeah, I think but then I do see some elements of the fact that it is dominant and perhaps a monopoly is problematic, because even with AI, essentially AI is an amalgamation of lots of different sources of information, or AI search results are, but they're all going through the same filter. So that's an interesting thing to think about. I think that if Google is the filter, then that does influence how everybody is seeing things, and that can, nothing's completely devoid of bias, so it can be potentially problematic. I don't know if you have any thoughts on any of that too.
Yeah, and you was a bit jumpy at times there, but I think it's okay now. But yeah, no, good points there. I think generally, yeah, I still think at the end of the day that, well, I think more cases are going to come against Google. I think Yelp will only be the start of other people picking up on Google. Have had maybe done some things against that maybe they shouldn't have. Well, it depends how you see it. I mean, I can see it from Google's point of view as well, that they've just tried to be the best and biggest product they can be. I mean, that's what most businesses try to do. But whether they've done it in the right way, we don't know. And I guess some of the things that come out saying they may not have done. So obviously people like Yelp, who have been squashed by some of the changes Google have made, there are probably going to be more of those cases come out. And as you say, it don't matter how much money Google has, all these cases will take a toll on their finances, along with the cost that AI has. I've talked about on these episodes before the actual cost of running all these AI all the servers they need and all that for AI, artificial intelligence services and products they have, is a lot of money. And on top of that, with the court cases, it's going to have an effect on Google. I think obviously it'd be great if there is more competition in the search market, but I think at the end of the day, I don't care if it's just Google or it's Bing, Google and SearchGPT. We just want the best possible search product there is. So, I don't care if that is just Google, but I do think some of the stuff they've done in the past has favored their own products. And I think we've seen that. And that doesn't necessarily mean that their own products are better than the ones that were there instead of them. I think they've obviously favored themselves, and that isn't really the best way to do it. So I think I still think there's a long, long way to go in this story. Google are going to fight all the way to make sure it's just a couple of fines again. But either way, it's going to damage them in one way or the other. But I think some of these will come along. Maybe that they will have to, obviously stop those sort of partnerships. I think that's definitely going to be the case, and some fines. But whether, I don't know what else could be. But obviously DOJ are trying to make an example of Google in this space, and they probably see that Google have a lot of money, and they could probably get some of that as well. So yeah, and obviously that they're trying to make a fairer market. So we'll see. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know the US legal system, obviously, as well as I do the UK one. I don't know that much, but yeah. And obviously, this is only the US side, we've got to say. So Google had their own other things going on in Europe as well, with European regulations as well. So this is just US generally. So yeah, I don't know if you got anything else to add on the story, or how you think it's going to play out in the end.
Yeah, I think it's hard to predict, isn't it? But I think some of their counterpoints, their counter arguments are quite interesting, because I'm not sure how convinced I am by any of them as someone who works in search. I mean, one of them was about one of the things they're being asked to do is share search data with competitors, and they say that could lead to breaches of privacy and could reveal personal data. So there is, in one of the articles that will be shared, there's an example of where it was actually quite easy for somebody to kind of match up somebody's search data to an individual. So, I mean, yes, privacy is obviously a concern, but at the same time, a ton of SEOs have access to search data. So they make the argument that it would be in the hands of bad actors potentially, but I don't know how compelling that is as an argument, because lots of people can access the data already. I wonder if it will be more about taking further measures to anonymize that data. Obviously, we're not trying to track people down. We're just trying to find trends and make sure that we're targeting the right keywords or the right topics that people are searching for. But there's nothing to stop bad actors who are also proficient in SEO getting their hands on that data as well already. So I'm not overly sold on that argument as it stands. And it does use Google. I mean, they say that, they've got their strict safe search policies, which is fair, but they do also use our searches to advertise to us. So I don't know how far they can really position themselves as the sort of heroes of this story, which I think is also the case for their argument about, they said that it could, breaking up their partnerships with Android, for example, it could end up making mobile phone devices more expensive, because if it's separated, then it could push prices up for everybody. But do Google actually care about this? How convinced are we by this? They are a business and they make their money through selling things, whether that's ads or devices. So I think they're going to have a hard time convincing people that they've got ethics at the heart of their concerns. And they've said about if they share their ad ranking data, it could make it less, could make adverts less useful, and they say that their kind of ad models level the playing field for small and big publishers, because there's no minimum spend. So there's some level of, I guess the entry point is the same for everyone. But again, obviously, if you're a big publisher with lots of money, you can spend more money on Google Ads. So yeah, I'm not sure how truly equitable Google Ads is, and how convincing that's going to be. And I think also they're probably worried about, obviously they do rely on ads for part of their income. So, and there's lots of talk about how adverts are going to be more integrated with AI. So if they're having to share or kind of diminish some of their advertising or their AI technologies or mechanisms, then they've got to be worried about that and what, the things that they're planning around those. So I think they do have some valid arguments, but I think it's also quite easy to push back against them. And one of their other ones was about stifling AI innovation. And it is true that there isn't really, I think it is fair to say there isn't perhaps an AI monopoly or dominant player, though there are some big ones, but there are quite a few of them, and obviously new ones coming all the time. And we know that AI and machine learning, they're some of the fastest growing careers at the moment. So I guess you can make an argument for placing restrictions on these things as inhibiting kind of career development for new technologies, new areas. But I'm just not sure if I understand how these proposals would actually inhibit that. I don't know what you think, Sean.
There's no doubt that companies like Google and Meta, obviously they're so important in everyone's life. They play a big part in society. They're so integrated, but also both of them are doing, like you say, talk about ethics, but obviously we had Google with the AI overview debacle with all the strange results that were being put out, possibly harming people's lives, telling them to do some things they shouldn't. And Facebook have many other things that have been found out, with things that should be on the platform that shouldn't be, and so on. So, when they get pushed into a corner and they make out they're so innocent and they're helping mankind so much, and we'll be lost without them. I mean, I remember a time without Facebook and Google, and life wasn't that bad. And Facebook isn't the giant it used to be, and there's been other things come along like TikTok and Google. It's a great search engine; it's the best one out there, but doesn't mean that we can't find another option. So I don't really feel sorry for them. They're making tons of money. They are a money-making organization. They don't really care about us. They don't even really care about the publishers that create the content that they take and create their product from. So I don't really feel sorry for them. Obviously, I don't want it totally to go because our job would be harder. But what I'm saying, I don't feel that sorry for them, but I understand their argument. And we'll see what happens in this one, and we'll obviously keep reporting on it. On to the next story, and I think I skipped actually, but so obviously it's been Bing and their new generative search rollout. So Microsoft said we're rolling out an expansion of generative search to cover informational queries such as how to effectively run a one-on-one and how can I remove background noise from my podcast recordings. And I better read that one. Whether you're looking for a detailed explanation, solving a complex problem, or doing deep research, generative AI helps deliver a more profound level of answers that goes beyond surface level results. So information on that, Bing's AI-powered generative search experience is currently rolling out in the US. Is utilizing GPT-4 and Microsoft's in-house models. New features include summarize answers and source citations to improve the accuracy and clarity of search results. Bing's deep search functionality has been updated to enhance speed and deliver more efficient search results. And the AI-driven experience is designed to handle complex informational queries with more depth and precision. So, it's interesting. We obviously Bing started all this craziness with when they started rolling out AI, and then obviously Google responded, and then Bing's market share hasn't really moved since that point. And I guess now they're starting to ramp it up again in terms of what they're doing with AI and Microsoft. And they got some great people at Microsoft that know their stuff about AI. So it'd be interesting. Obviously, but I've not seen this. We're not in the US. I've not seen it, or I've not even seen other people use it really. But it'd be interesting to see if this actually moves the needle for Bing, because I think it needs to really if they're going to continue investing the amount of money they probably are into AI. And obviously, last week I did cover. They've just invested in a new kind of adapted nuclear power plant in Pennsylvania to build more capacity for their AI capabilities. hiring loads of people. So they need it to work, and they need to get some more market share. So yeah, I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I also thought it was just in the US, but I had a look before this meeting and was able to use deep search on Bing. So I think there is, or maybe it's in beta version in the UK as well now, but it was very slow. That was my main takeaway. And they have acknowledged this. So they know that it needs to be faster, I guess, hence the investment in these additional technologies. But yeah, it was very slow, and a lot of people are just not going to wait that long unless you're an SEO who wants to find out what it does. But it was, yeah, I think that's the main thing I would say about it. But it gives you some additional prompts. Like, for example, I searched how to save money, and it gave me some 3 prompts. One of them was how to save money in the UK. So it obviously knows that I'm in the UK. So that's good, quite specific to my location. So I clicked on that, and then, yeah, it was quite slow to respond. I had to refresh it to actually get the results. But then I did get the results, and it was kind of a, yes, amalgamation, had sort of several cards, I guess. I'm not sure what the SERP features of Bing are. I'm not sure what the names for them are, but they seem to be creating new ones every time I look at it too. But it had quite a lot of cards about different articles from different sources about how to save money in the UK on your bills and things like that. It does seem to give more credit to publishers, which is interesting. But the other odd thing about that particular search was that I got an ad at the top of my results, which was to donate to the charity UNICEF, which I think is not brilliant. If somebody who's looking to save money probably isn't looking to spend money or donate money, so that maybe something a bit wrong with their advertising there. I think also there's a lot going on just in their standard search results. It's not bad, but it's very busy. I do quite like that they have the sort of table of contents or document index. I think that's how they're calling it. Just in their standard results. And it seems to be another way of the SERP replicating the traditional website experience by putting sort of navigational features in the results page itself, with the kind of sidebar of navigation, which alongside the kind of the cards of the different articles as well. So again, that seems to be another example of where publishers could appear in search results twice, because you could appear in the sidebar navigation and in the kind of general search engine result. So that's something we talked about with AI overviews a few weeks ago as well. So it's interesting that you get that additional opportunity to appear. But yeah, as we've said, obviously AI, all the search engines and competitors and people who are looking to challenge are heavily investing in AI. And I was thinking, I wonder if there's room for some sort of sleeper agent competitor that makes their USP not using AI, because a lot of people don't like it. And, you said, some of us remember before Google was really a big thing, or Facebook, I remember looking things up on Encarta, for example. And just as a general trend, I think there is a bit of obviously a big trend for retro things and like vintage, and people using record players and things like that instead of, Spotify or something like that in the music world. So I think maybe there is something in that idea of people want a bit more back to basics, and maybe to actually really challenge or stand out or offer something different, the answer is not AI. You could really position yourself as a, yeah, I don't know what the word is, sort of analog type competitor, because there are a lot of people who are distrustful of AI, and obviously there's all these restrictions being put in place, these big companies and monopolies. So I'd be interested to see somebody doing something different as well.
Yeah, 100%. And we've seen we're talking about minor growth, but we've seen search engines like DuckDuckGo. I think there's one called Brave that have kind of come on the scene and kind of, because they offer something slightly different. DuckDuckGo is more secure and that kind of thing, and less adverts and that kind of thing. So yeah, so maybe there is a possibility for someone else to pick up some of that share of search, and yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know about there was it's in beta, so I'm going to check that out afterwards. But yeah, no, interesting to see the early results and hear about that. So yeah, we'll get cracking on the next stories so we can fit in some of the other stories. So yeah, OpenAI confirms AI agents are coming next year. So OpenAI is on target to launch agents next year. These are independent artificial intelligent models capable of performing a range of tasks without human input and could be available in ChatGPT soon. So during its first OpenAI Dev Day event in San Francisco, CEO Sam Altman said 2025 is when agents will work. And the company demonstrated an early example of the potential capabilities of agents by having a voice assistant make a call and order strawberries on its own. So, yeah, the company said there are 5 stages of artificial general intelligence, otherwise known as AGI. We are currently at stage 2, where AI can reason through an idea before responding. Agents is at stage 3, and means AI is smart enough to reason through an idea, and as part of planning, its response can go off and perform actions independently. So, I mean, yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And just to finish off so building useful and functional agents is something every AI lab is working towards. For example, it would allow the AI not to only write a book, but go off and work out how to self-publish, including signing up for an account with Amazon to share it on Kindle. I mean, I'm kind of like, because if you said to someone 5 years ago that this would be even possible, I think you'll be like, yeah, in 30, 40 years maybe. But this is happening now. And whether it works or not, I don't. Obviously, the voice, they've done a lot of work around voice in the last few weeks. I mean, if this is possible, which it does, I think it is possible, and obviously they're looking to launch it. I don't know what it's going to do for mankind, if it's a good or bad thing, to be honest. I can't put my finger on it. I can see it being very useful, but I also can think it could be a dangerous thing, and also could make humans quite lazy if they don't even have to do these kind of things. So yeah, I don't know if you had any thoughts on this story.
Yeah, it is amazing, and I'm sure Sean will put the article that shows the video of an AI ordering strawberries on in the links with the video. But it's quite funny, and it's also amazing what it can do. But as you say, there are obviously risks, and it's not something you want to get into the wrong hands, which unfortunately with AI is a big risk, because by its nature it's quite open and available to people. So there are lots of risks. I saw an interesting talk at Brighton SEO a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure quite a few of viewers were there as well. But it was a great talk by Finn Elliott, who was talking about AI agents, and he was saying about how they can integrate so many things, because at the moment we're not really necessarily fulfilling the true potential of AI. It could really link a lot of our systems together much better. Sort of, obviously, we have APIs with many things, but AI could really boost that and really integrate everything, potentially all of our different systems, much more efficiently than what we can currently do. And it can also, he gave the example of, well, if you were writing a magazine article, it could write questions about, say, the latest men's fashion. It could call a journalist, ask the questions, do an interview, write a transcript, write up an article, which is incredible. I mean, it would, I guess if you're a journalist, that's probably not something you want to hear about, but that is something that it can potentially do, and maybe save you a lot of time on potentially quite a time-consuming task of doing all the admin of setting up the interview and writing it all up and everything. I mean, I have transcribed interviews in the past, and it takes a long time. So being able to automate that process, although, yeah, hopefully it will be accurate, because it is difficult to transcribe even for a human ear sometimes. So I guess you're still going to have people checking it. And that actually was something that Finn Elliott said as well. He said, don't let your agents work alone, which I think is a good message, because, yeah, there is a risk of becoming overly reliant on them, but there are certain things that you can't replicate. I mean, in the example with the journalist, yes, that would be an efficient way of doing it, but I wonder if that, say, the stylist that gets interviewed, would they want to work with you again versus somebody who takes the time to actually have a conversation and develop a relationship with them? You know, who, if they find out some new trend or something, who are they going to call or pitch that to? Is it going to be the person that a real person that they know and have a face and a name, or is it going to be an AI? So I think there is, there are considerations there around just human relationships, I guess, and how far this can go. But I mean, it's definitely exciting. And in the talk, they talked about it potentially opening up more capacity for SEO teams. So hopefully that's the case, that it would enable us to do more of what we want to do rather than replacing us and, doing our job for us. But I think, yeah, very interesting, very exciting, but also potentially quite scary. Yeah, I don't know if you have any further thoughts on that.
Yeah, I had as a member of the Charlie Institute of Marketing, I watched a webinar around AI, and it depends how far you want to go. But obviously, they got very good, and it's only going to get better in terms of deep fake videos, voice replication. If, for example, it got you down to a T, your voice, your look, and you could video call someone, maybe they wouldn't even be able to tell the difference in future. That is where it could go, and obviously that's good in one sense, but also worrying in other sense that we've seen already online with deep fakes, and the potential things that could happen with there, and obviously scams are going to get more intelligent, and it's like with anything, it depends how you use it. It could be great, or it could be very, very dangerous. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, ChatGPT 5 is going to be, they've been saying it's going to be more than double the time better than this ChatGPT 4. So yeah, although I think prices are going to go up as well quite a bit, so because of the power they need to generate it all. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's a fast world, moving world we're living in right now, and I think people have got to. I think a lot of people are saying that technology is moving a lot faster than humans are capable of dealing with it. That's something we're probably going to have to either catch up with or slow down the pace of technology, because we're not in sync at the moment. So let's just go on to other news, which we cover a whole range of different topics and try and throw in some fun ones, some interesting ones, not the normal sort of coverage that we've just been covering. So the first story, and this was, I thought, really interesting. Obviously, we cover AI quite a lot. And this is the Godfather of AI shares Nobel Physics Prize. So Geoffrey Hinton and John Hopfield were awarded the 2024 Nobel Physics Prize for their work on machine learning and neural networks. So Hinton, known as the Godfather of AI, pioneered research that contributed to the modern AI systems like chatgpt. And both scientists' work has a wide-ranging applications, including climate modeling, medical image analysis, and AI technology. However, obviously, the Godfather of AI, Geoffrey Hinton, he has expressed his concerns many times about AI's potential dangers, warning it could surpass human intelligence and control. And he's, what's worrying is that people who actually invented this stuff, it came out of their brains, that they're worried about it big time, and most of the people using it have said there's a real danger to humanity by using this. So it seems odd that it keeps on going, and yet we know potentially what could be coming down the line in terms of dangers. It's like I don't know, it's like you're letting your kids play with matches. It's, you kind of know what's probably going to be down the track, what's going to happen, and you're just going to keep letting them play with them, waiting for that fire to happen. But it's it's interesting, and that he got recognized in terms of they got recognized in the Nobel Physics Prizes. So I don't have anything to add on to that one.
I mean, I think it's right that they are recognized with the Nobel Prize. I mean, it is a world-changing technology, and it's one of the biggest and most far-reaching innovations that I think we've seen in our lifetimes. But yeah, I think it's often the case that inventors of things are the most aware of the risks and don't want it to get into the wrong hands. There are people out there who raise valid concerns about how it could be used for creating dangerous weapons, weapons of mass destruction potentially. So, those risks are there, and there are so many different applications. I think that's the exciting and the terrifying thing about it, that it could be used. It has the potential to integrate or infiltrate, depending on how you look at it, all different areas of our lives. So yeah, I think it's fair to be worried about it, but it's hard to know what or if anybody can do about that at this point, because it's already out there and it's developing so fast. As you say, it could potentially, well, I don't know about surpass human intelligence, but it can go off and do things on its own potentially that we don't have that much control over. I mean, I was thinking about this in relation to the Google Department of Justice story as well, in terms of if it creates something, whose intellectual property is that, and is that something that's going to come into some of these court cases? If, does it belong to the AI agent that has developed almost something akin to sentience, or does it belong to the person who created it originally? I don't know the answer, but it's just something I was thinking about.
Nice, good point. And I try and be optimist. I know I optimism, an optimist, but I know on here I seem like I bash Google and AI. I mean, I use both daily, obviously, and I work with them very closely, and I really love using AI and the tools and different features it has. But obviously, you've got to be concerned, because human history only tells us that if we get our hands on any sort of new technologies, we usually, as you say, use them to develop weapons, and bad things happen. And obviously, it doesn't necessarily mean that they were developed with bad intentions, but they usually end up being that way. And obviously, I haven't put it in this week, but there was a story about the US Army developing AI robot dogs that can fire weapons. And obviously, if you think about with AI, they're going to be quite accurate in terms of their performance. So it's, it adds another sort of element onto the battlefield and stuff. And but hopefully, AI can be used for so many good things as well. We've seen that in the medical industry, especially. So, and as you say, it could potentially build a really great network of information and data and everything. So it has got so much potential. I just hope we're sensible with it and we use it in the right way. So the next story, and sorry you hear the doorbell. I was expecting that, but it got me when I'm talking. So this was a really good YouTube video, and I'll share it. Obviously, all the links are in the description, so hopefully you can go and watch it yourself. But basically, an SEO expert called Brie Moreau. I hope I said that right. But you'll see it in the video. But he studied 260,000 search results to understand how Google views content. And it's really, really interesting. And some of the key points from it was a data-driven approach to SEO highlights the importance of enhancing topic coverage and depth for improving rankings. Focus on information gain, providing unique, valuable content Google hasn't seen before to outperform competitors. Site speed is critical, but equally essential in user engagement. Faster loading and optimizing interaction metrics drive better results. And creating strong content clusters can help smaller websites compete against larger authority sites. So, I thought it was a really, obviously, a very thorough content case study where you study, like I say, 260,000 search results to come up with these results. And maybe nothing is too surprising. Create unique content that works well in terms of performance, building content clusters. But sometimes it's good just to get that reassurance, that sort of actual case study behind it. And it's a really great video. I learned a lot from it, and I really recommend going to watch it. But I don't know if you had a chance to even look at it yet, Adair, but
I haven't had a chance to watch the video yet, but as you say, it's always quite reassuring, I think, to see studies like this where, obviously everything is changing, as we've talked about. AI is doing all sorts of things, and there's all kinds of shenanigans happening in the SERPs, but ultimately good content and useful, unique content, site speed, all these things that we've been doing for years and that we know are important for our overall website health and that our users value, they still matter and they're still valued by search engines. And so I think it's good to, I guess, not obviously not discount optimizing around AI, but just to not forget the foundations of SEO and just good quality content as well. And it's, so I do appreciate this case study and the articles like it that demonstrate the value of the more traditional elements of SEO, because they are still really important and valuable to users.
Yeah, 100%. And the next story is from Chris Long, someone we've said a lot in the past. He always shares really awesome articles, videos, tips, and stuff. And this was I found really interesting, and he found it really interesting as well. So for e-commerce SEO, Google actually crawls your add to cart functionality in order to verify your product's final price. So buried in Google's e-commerce SEO documentation, which is found in this link I'll share in the description, Google lists some of the best practices for launching new stores. One option they give is launching a site without products available yet. However, their recommendation is to mark each product as out of stock as opposed to disabling the ability to add to cart. Then they mention that Google actually crawls your add to cart functionality in order to confirm the final price, ensuring tax and shipping information is accurate. So the takeaway here, it said, is that the information in your add to cart pages need to reflect all the information that you're sending to Google, the structured data, product data feeds, on-page content. Google is actually using the add to cart functionality to verify all that information you're sending to it is correct. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting, actually. Any thoughts on that?
Not a lot, to be honest. I think it's just useful information to know if you're in the e-commerce space. And I guess for us, it's something, as a charity, we're not necessarily selling loads of products, but we are asking for donations and selling, I suppose you could say, fundraising events. So it's worth us keeping these things in mind for those types of products also.
Yeah, for sure. We'll do the last few. We've got to do a couple more stories if you still got time, and then we'll call it a day. So this was from Aleda Solis. She's done a really great survey. She gathered insights from 337 SEO specialists who provide consulting services, whether full-time, part-time, independently, or within an agency. And obviously the link to that survey and the results will be in the description. And some of the key findings included most of the SEO consultants prefer to focus on ongoing SEO processes rather than a one-time SEO consultancies. So that was 79% preferred that. A high share of SEOs find it more difficult to sell SEO now than versus a couple of years ago, as well as harder to achieve SEO goals. An increase in competition and complexity, as well as frequent Google updates and limitations in client budget or resources were mentioned to cause the growing difficulty in achieving SEO goals compared to a few years ago. The top SEO tools used for SEO consultancy work are Screaming Frog, SEMrush, Google Search Console, and Ahrefs. And a focus on content quality and EEAT, traffic diversity, as well as staying up to date are the most common proactive approaches by SEO consultants to tackle the current SEO consulting challenges and threats. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Obviously, we work in-house, but I think we can relate to a lot of those challenges. And I did find it odd, actually, that it's harder to sell SEO now than it was a couple of years ago, because I feel there's more awareness of SEO now, but I guess budgets are tighter because of everything going on, and maybe they're just concerned they haven't got the budget and they need to put it into paid just to get those results. So I guess that's probably the obstacle they're facing. Not so much people don't think SEO is important. But yeah, then if you had any thoughts on those results.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. And one of the things was about SEOs preferring to work on something long term, which makes sense. I think obviously we, as an in-house team, we do have that benefit of we're working on something continuously, whereas I guess in an agency you're maybe working on a project or a couple of projects and then not necessarily getting to keep iterating. So which is what you want to do in any kind of digital field. The best thing to do is to iterate and test and learn. So I can definitely understand where that comes from. I do think I kind of understand, I think, why it may be getting harder to sell SEO, I think obviously with AI, it's becoming harder to demonstrate value in using traditional metrics, or to to kind of measure things the way that we would like to, or in as much depth, because kind of touched on it earlier, AI is moving so fast that a lot of things that we want to go with it haven't necessarily caught up. So although there are more measurement tools being rolled out all the time, they're perhaps not where we would like them to be, and not as accurate or as specific as we want them to be. So it's a little bit harder to explain to a potential client maybe what exactly the results are that they're looking at and why they're good or bad. But I think also the traditional metrics like click-through rate, which perhaps more clients are familiar with, are becoming less relevant. Obviously, they are still important, but there's such a shift now to Google and search engines trying to provide so much within the search engine results page itself, and to kind of keep the user there, that visibility metrics are becoming so much more important, and it can be probably harder to convince a client that actually you may not be getting as many clicks, but you're already getting loads of impressions, and that you're already visible and your brand is being shown a lot, but they may not necessarily understand the benefits of that. So I think it's really important to kind of align, what matters to the client with what SEO can do for them, but it may be a little bit harder to explain or to demonstrate than perhaps it has been in the past.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great point. It's even hard to explain it to people. I think SEOs, we even find it hard to explain to each other sometimes what's going on, and everyone has conflicting sort of thoughts sometimes we see in the SEO community around what's important, what isn't important, what is going on, so trying to explain that to someone who may not have any idea about SEO is a whole different thing. So not only that, what came to my mind is there's certain web hosting companies that kind of sell this dream of SEO included, AI optimization included, and they think, oh, that's SEO done then, that if they've got, that ticked off because they've done a few meta descriptions for them or something, or, a few sort of on-page optimization recommendations, they think that's SEO. So maybe it's a case that people are going onto these different hosting platforms and thinking that they haven't got to spend additional money on SEO. But yeah, I guess that's what makes a great kind of consultant, the ones who can convince and get across the importance of SEO in today's world. So yeah, interesting. So I guess that.
Sorry, just to say, some of these platforms do have quite good plugins. It's not that they're bad, and I can totally see how, if you've got a limited budget, you maybe don't want to pay for expensive SEO consultancy, but they have limitations. Like we've been saying with AI, it's it can only do so much, and it can't necessarily replicate the experience of someone who really knows what's going on in the industry and what the latest algorithm updates are and things like that. So it can probably do like some pretty useful functional things for you, like make sure that your basic SEO elements are set up correctly, but it can't necessarily go deeper and get you as strong results as you may get with an SEO expert on board.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, it can't, even AI at the moment wouldn't be able to create a strategy and execute the strategy. So yeah, it's no real. But yeah, like you say, there are some good tools that you want to do the basics of SEO covered. You want to get them covered, then it will do that for you. But yeah, obviously there's no replacement right now for a good SEO consultant. So yeah, that's the last story before we drop off, and it is from Hrefs and a study again, and Tim Solo, I think that's how you pronounce it. Again, I'm sorry, Tim, if that's incorrect, but again, he posts some good stuff. He also has there's a lot of good videos on the Hrefs YouTube channel and also on Spotify. You'll find all our chats on Spotify as well. But yeah, if you go on Spotify and type in Hrefs, there are some good videos on there. But anyway, he found in this study that, and again, the link will be in the description, 96.55% of web pages get zero traffic from Google. And a simple takeaway from all this, he said, is just don't just create content. Have an airtight plan of how your content is going to be discovered by people who you're creating it for. So, yeah, I thought that was just an interesting study. Obviously, we're trying to internally and I'm sure most SEOs are trying to educate that every single page on your site needs to have a purpose. It needs to be there for a reason. It can be damaging if you're getting sort of pages that aren't really adding anything indexed, and they're not necessarily going to do anything for you. So yeah, I thought obviously that was an quite obviously extremely high number. Yeah, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it is high, but I think it's not a huge surprise. We know, and we have known for quite a long time, that clicks are declining, zero-click searches are rising. So even just from things like featured snippets, which now I guess are a bit of an older SERP feature compared to some of the things we're getting now, contributed to fewer people clicking through to web pages. And obviously with the innovations with AI overviews and the things that Bing is doing now as well, there's more and more just being provided in the search engine results. There was another talk I wanted to mention from Brighton SEO, from I think it was Imogen Grooms, who said something about, she was talking about e-commerce, but she talked about Google wanting to cut out the messy middle, so keep people in Google's ecosystem and reduce the time taken to make a decision or to ruminate, so they could potentially aggregate a lot of product reviews and put them into an AI overview. So, and also potentially enabling more transactions within the search engine itself. So, yeah,
sorry, go on. Now, I was just going to say, obviously, it touches back on what we said before about Google being a money-making business. Everything they crawl, the longer they take to find this information, and the more they store, the more they index and keep on their database, it's costing them money. So they want to index as least as possible to get the most information from it, and yeah, take little time as possible to find that information. That's their whole goal. So yeah, no, it's interesting. Sorry about yeah.
No, that's okay. And then that's a good point. And then also just the importance of multi-channel marketing and integrating SEO with everything else. Another Brighton SEO shouts out to a talk by Sharon Malik, and I'll try and dig out the slide decks for these as well, so we can put them in the info, the video description. But Sharon was talking about the importance of things like PR campaigns and integrating your SEO and PR, because obviously SEO is not just search engines anymore, and there is this move towards kind of search engine experience and generative SEO as well. So, maybe I'm just going to check my notes because I think it's somebody else who talked about this. So yeah, Ed Coles also gave a talk from Kaizen at Brighton SEO, and Ed talked about GEO, generative optimization, and SXO, search experience optimization. So who knows, maybe instead of SEOs in the future will be GEOs or something. But just so a couple of different talks there that were highlighting this multi-channel element of SEO, and that SEO is not just your website and your search engine. It's all these different platforms that are available to you. It's PR, it's your brand mentions, it's your social media, it's AI, it's which in some ways it's more opportunities, but it's also more difficult if you're gonna have to try and understand how all of these different platforms work and how you can appear in them. And then as well, as you said, making sure that what you do have on your website is useful and what your users want and need. We use Spotify to identify pages which are crawled but not indexed. We've got a big website and we have quite a few pages that are crawled but not indexed. So just making sure that we're trying to get on top of those and make sure that the ones that we do want indexed are, and just reviewing them and making sure that Google and the users are able to find the information that they want to see from us. But it's definitely worth. I guess this is why, again, going back to traditional search engine search optimization strategies, that's why it's important to audit your content and make sure that everything you do have is there for a good reason, and reviewing if it can be consolidated or if you've got out-of-date content and figuring out how to deal with that.
Yeah, no, 100% great points. And I guess we'll wrap it up there. Obviously, we've got more stories, but we haven't got time to cover them. So, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I'll post any of the other stories if they're still relevant, and so you can see what they are. And all the links in the description. And hopefully, if you like this, please do subscribe and like. That would really help the channel grow. And thanks for watching, and thank you, Adair, again for joining me this week and all your great insights.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.